Guess we're live. That was pretty quick there? That was a quick intro. Thanks, Larry. Hey, Woodsters. Welcome to After Hours with Cans, a production of Beast of the Woods. And tonight, as you can see, my guest here is Eric Palacios of Media Palace channel here on YouTube. Beast of Brushy Creek, not Bushy, Brushy Creek.
That's all right.
And soon Expedition Brushy Creek, as you can see over his shoulder. And geez, what else? And a book too? Is that's next also?
That's
So
next. Yeah.
we got the multimedia star joining us tonight.
I don't know about all that, but
Well, what we're going to talk about primarily, and if you haven't checked out Eric's channel, subscribe, go over to Media Palace. You'll see all of his documentaries on there and some of his other short videos in regards to Brushy Creek and some other things that have been going on around that area, as well as what we'll talk about tonight with a little bit of a federal context to it with the wanted poster of Bigfoot there in Round Rock, Texas. But Eric, our audience is pretty familiar with you. You've been on before, but tell us what you've been up to. Tell us kind of what's been going on with you here for a little bit, and then we'll get into
sure.
your actual encounter yourself or activity that you'd encountered down there.
Yeah, no. Well, first off the bat, I'd like to say thanks for inviting me on. Yeah, I know you're always, hanging out some of the same places that I'm hanging out, so it's nice that I get to come on here and get to chat with you, with everybody else. But it's been pretty busy, man. Since the first Beast of Brushy Creek documentary came out, and then the Legend of Hairy Man Road documentary that I put out few months after that. It's been pretty busy. I've kind of become the unofficial Bigfoot or hairy man guy in my area. So I've been dealing with a lot of people reaching out to me and with new stuff and even older stuff that I hadn't heard about. So it's been a lot to handle, I guess. So I'm trying to package things now into other forms and kind of luckily, I don't want to say luckily, but this year we had a pretty big drought here in Texas, and it was, I think, the second biggest drought since 2011. And 2011 is actually when I had my first experience in June 2011. So I was actually able to go back to the same spot, and it kind of looked similar because of the drought. So I was able to go back out there and kind of go step by step of where we were, where this thing was, and I think people would be really interested to kind of take a deep dive into the Brushy Creek, because I know in some of the
Right.
documentaries I talk about it, but I don't really show it as much. And this time we're actually going down into some of these cave areas and crevices and the Brushy Creek trails, which are just really, I don't want to say hot spot, but there's so much activity going on. It's really
Right.
unbelievable.
Right. And now this this area, Round Rock, Texas, and the Brushy Creek area, and we've looked at it on the other night when we were doing a little pre-show about how thick it is around there, but how close some of the development is, how the houses are kind of built up
Yeah.
right back to there. So that kind of gave us a better idea of what that area was like, and how it was kind of a corridor, and how Bushy Creek ran for a long
Oh yeah.
distance, like you said, out to the Balcones Canyonlands. But you grew up around that area, right near Brushy Creek.
Yeah, growing up, my childhood home actually backed up to the Brushy Creek. It was less than 100 yards away, and we grew up going out there fishing almost every a couple times a month, almost every weekend. We'd go back there fishing or just walking in the trails back there and stuff. So we knew it was a little spooky of an area when we were living there, but we didn't really know how much until I got a little bit older and
Well,
when I had my experience.
what was kind of the reputation? What you guys were you're hanging out there was kind of the edge of your of that housing development. So at that
Right.
time, it was just kind of an open field.
Oh yeah.
Um, so you guys were out there like riding dirt bikes or
Yeah.
fishing, or what was going on? And kind of what was the vibe for the neighborhood? What people thought about it?
Well, like I said, we kind of all had our suspicions about the area. We knew that it was like a Native American, place that people found arrowheads and other things like that. And yeah, like I said, we just did a lot of fishing out there. We ride our bikes on the trails and do all types of animal spotting, and even did a little bit of dove hunting back there every once in a while. But it was just a place that was just full of wildlife. Even to this day, there's still development there, but there's just so much thickness, and these trails and these green belts go on for miles all the way to the balconies like you had said. And that's we might talk about that a little bit later, but it's just really dense area filled with caves. I think in my area there's a total of 700 named caves. So just think of the amount of unknown caves in that distance. Could be the thousands really. But
Right,
that's
right. And
that's what we knew.
there were like sinkholes that have had
Yeah.
opened up on some of these housing developments that were built on top of these areas.
Oh yeah, that was like a common thing. You'd hear about houses shifting or foundation cracking in some houses because of the movement. And yeah, in 2018 there was actually a really huge cave in over a neighborhood that went underneath. I think like 6 or 7 houses, something like that. It was over
Right.
200 feet long.
Right, and you'd later on you'd found a cave too that had kind of an odd door on it and stuff like that. So we'll get into
Oh
that
yeah,
too. But take us back since we're going to kind of concentrate on the Bigfoot aspect of this area. You personally, back in 2011, was that
yeah,
right? Had something kind of go on when you were down there. So kind of just kind of tell
sure.
us about that if you can.
Yeah, it was it was June 2011, and like I said, 2011, I believe it was Texas' worst drought it's ever had, and there was about 6 of us, and it was like a normal thing. We did this on a monthly basis. We'd go out there and fish and hang out, swim in the creek at the time. And at this point, since it was such a drought, there was just water that just kind of trickled into little ponds. It was like water trickling, and then it trickled into another one. And so it was literally like catching fish in a bucket. We were out there for hours. We caught a bunch of catfish. We were even able to catch crawdads, crayfish, because of these puddles. They were just trapped in there. So we got a bunch of crawfish. We did a crawfish boil afterwards. But while we were out there fishing, must have been out there for about 5 or 6 hours, swimming, fishing. And right around the time it started getting dark, we started packing our stuff up to get back to my house, where it was not that far. But we started packing our stuff up. We started walking on the trail to get back. And as we're walking, we hear this massive, like, elephant coming through the brush, just stomping, breaking trees down. I mean, we could feel the steps when it was taking steps. Like, it was unbelievably aggressive, coming at us at full force at a really fast pace. And we all just kind of froze. We had our phones that had lights on it, but it was almost that twilight hour. It wasn't so dark to where it was like pitch black, but it was still a little bit light out. And
Gotcha.
my friend who was in the front picked up a rock and he threw it. And once he did that, it was quiet. It was silence, nothing after that. And we walked past that area, crossed, and we never had any confrontations after that. But I often wonder, why couldn't we see that? Why weren't we able to see what we? If it was a person, we would have seen it. If it was another animal, I think we would have seen it. But for whatever reason, we didn't lay our eyes on it. So that just kind of
Now,
haunted us.
when that happened, I mean, had you guys seen any deer back there? Had you seen any, I don't know, bobcat back there? Was there anything that kind of lead you to believe that maybe it was just some other animal, maybe even a hog or something like that?
Deer didn't really come through that area of Brushy Creek, the East Brushy Creek. It was more of the west of Brushy Creek. Coyotes, we did have a good amount of coyotes in the area, but like I said, this thing was just, it was so massive. I mean, we could hear it like someone driving a car through the brush. Like it was just popping trees. It was, you could feel the ground almost vibrating as it was walking. And like I said, we should have seen it. It must have been within 10 feet of us, 12 feet of us. And for whatever reason, we didn't see it. Like I don't know why we didn't get any eyes on it. It was weird. And I mean, there was six of us. If it was a person, we could have easily handled that situation. There was six of us out there, but we all froze when we heard that crashing through the brush. And that's kind of a pattern. Like once you go back and you hear some of the stories of the Brushy Creek, they're always aggressive. They're always like people being charged at or trying to be chased out of the area. So, I'm not sure if that's just a Texas thing or what, but
Well, you said it was like felt like it was like 10 feet in front of you. Did you see any trees move or any branches thrown or
there was no movement that we saw. We just heard this massive crashing, just like it was tree. I remember trees snapping, just the vibration, felt it. And the way it was, the where we were, if you the pictures there, I have some pictures there, but it's like a slanted slope. And so if something is stomping through that area, it would have had to have incredible balance to be coming at us at that speed, at an angle like that. So it was odd. And again, I'm just wondering why we weren't able to see it is one of the main things.
now everybody that was there, did they kind of feel like that was the same kind of? I mean, there's six people there. I mean, you
Yeah.
heard sometimes where each person has kind of a different perspective of what happened. Um, Anybody say, "Oh, it was this," or "I saw something"?
No, we all like the last time we talked about it, we were all just like, what was that? We're still kind of like, what was that? The only thing that was different that I remember differently is that the guy, one of my friends said that he had a rock in his hand, but I remember him bending down to pick up the rock and throw it. That was really the only difference in our story that we all remembered. Like, and it's all very sync. You know what I mean? Like, except for that one little thing, and it's a minor detail, but we remember it all very clearly. And when we talk about it, it was like, what was that?
And as you're walking out, so you guys have been down by the creek fishing. You're walking up the
For
bank,
hours. Yeah.
and so then you're not really on a trail. You're just kind of walking to the
Right.
trail.
Yeah. We're walking to
Is
the trail. Yeah. We had to
and,
cross the creek to get to the trail.
right, and it's gotten its name, of course. Brushy Creek. So
Yeah.
it was you had a shelter belt or essentially a greenway that's probably how many yards off the creek into these fields. So you were, I mean,
Ooh.
it was high
Yeah.
around you. Could you see in front
Yeah.
of you, or was it like?
At that time, the brush was at least waist high. Yeah, it could go higher in some areas, but it waist high from what I remember. We even had a machete that day, and I remember the guy in front didn't have the machete. It was like the fourth or fifth guy had the machete, and I think I remember someone said give him the machete in front, just like as a joke, but that didn't end up happening. And he picked up the rock and
Right.
threw it. But I remember we had a machete out there because it got so dense. We would always take machetes and stuff out there just to kind of cut our way through. And we were really the only ones that fished in that spot. It was right behind my house. Just to get there through the brush was a hassle. Like I said, we had to cut our own trails and stuff. But
And was there anything else that you had experienced there, 50, living 50 feet from this area before, or any sounds you'd heard while you guys were out there at night or anything like that?
I mean, we did hear other sounds and stuff, but I don't know if I can, attribute that to Sasquatch or the hairy man. And we had other experiences. Again, I can't say that it was a hairy man or Sasquatch or anything like that, but we had, some interesting things happen to us living in that house just 50 yards away from the Brushy Creek. Yeah.
Okay, so what was some of that other kind of that you?
One of the things that I remember vividly was that me and my brother were walking to the neighbor's house, and again, this is just a weird thing. We were walking to his house, and then over our heads, we saw a flock of tropical birds, like green, yellow, blue parrots, like flying. A
Uh-huh.
lot of them, like a bunch of them, flying over our heads. And I remember my mom had seen it as well. She was waiting for us to make sure we got to the neighbor's house, and yeah, we just flew right over our heads. That was one of the weirdest, things I'd ever seen living in that area. Uh, and then we had seen there was like a cat roaming around at the time. We're not sure if it was a bobcat or it could have been, maybe cougar. I know there's been some wildcats that have been seen off Brushy Creek. I know a guy who had a trail cam picture of one, which is like really rare to hear that along the Brushy Creek. But I mean, he had a trail cam picture of it, so it's a thing.
Gotcha. Okay, so now that's kind of your personal experience, but there's also, I mean, the name of the road's Harry Man Road. There's also
Right.
historical context to this area within the sense
Oh, yeah.
of going back to like the 1800s with a story that people commonly kind of associate with Round Rock and Hairy
Right.
Man, but in reality, there's a story later on
Yeah.
that goes into what this road is all about.
Yes. So, I mean, like growing up in Round Rock in Williamson County, the legend that we're kind of told in the area through school and whatever is that Hairy Man Road got its name because pioneers traveling through that road would often encounter like a hairy man hanging through the trees, and the story ended up coming out, or the story ended up developing, I guess, into well, a pioneer child fell off the wagon, and he ended up living there off of Hairy Man Road as kind of a feral person or whatever. That's the story that we grew up with, and so there's really I haven't found anything yet as far as like any articles, newspaper articles, or any other history kind of that points to that being factual. But the one piece of data that I did find was actually in a book that was written, I believe it came out in the 70s. It was by the local postmaster of the area.
Okay, hold on to that for just a second. Didn't mean to interrupt. We got
No,
to go
sure.
back to this feral human, this
Okay,
feral
sure. Go
human
ahead.
thing,
Yeah, go ahead.
because it's not just like, oh yeah, there's a story about it. I mean, there's kind of a lore
There is a
about,
lore. Yeah, you're right. There is a lore. Yeah,
so it's like it's woven into like the history kind of
right.
there of that area.
Yeah,
And like you said, it's about pioneers coming across the way, and like you know, I mean, did you check into that as far as is that just all legend and stuff, or was there a story that was about that, or
so I
was
mean that's a really widespread folklore. I'll say. I won't say it's true or not. The earliest accounts that I could find about the Hairy Man Road was in the late 70s, and that's when they were talking about the pioneer myth. Was in the 70s, and there
okay,
was even
okay,
there was even an article I
gotcha.
found which was like, yeah, there was an article I found in like 1981, I think, of a woman, and she's talking about she's warning her daughter not to go on Hairy Man Road, and she kind of tells the story that we grew up with, which was like there was like a car and or a wagon or whatever. It varies, car, wagon, it varies from who you're talking to. But the one is like that we grew up with is that the canopies that were or the wagons, the toes of the hairy man would scratch the top of the canopies of the wagons passing through. So that was actually I found that written in an article from the 80s. So whether it's real or not, I don't know. Maybe it was the
Nice.
lady just trying to scare her daughter into going up there. I'm not really sure, but that
Right.
is the folklore that's been around the Hairy Man Road since its inception, really. And
Okay.
yeah,
Now,
so there's
now we
always
can
been
fast forward.
sure.
Or go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Go
Well, I
ahead.
was going to say that it's kind of so much of a lore is that in 2020 there is when we had the all the crazy stuff, shutdowns and everything like that, the baseball team here actually wasn't able to play, but the local college team actually played as the Hairy Man of Round Rock.
I did see that. I
Yeah,
did see that. I was searching through
yeah,
Round Rock and Hairy Man Road search terms on YouTube, and it pulled that up. And I kind of thought, oh well, that must be kind of normal. I thought, oh yeah, maybe that's just kind of their ironic name. And but I didn't look at it any
yeah.
deeper. But they just changed that for that 1 year.
Yeah, just for that 1 year. Yeah, and I bought a hat. I have it somewhere. Uh, but again, they talk to the players, and even the local players are like, oh, they tell the story of the settler story.
Oh yeah,
they don't tell the story that I'm gonna kind of relate to you here. But again, that kind of dates back to where that we've been programmed, I guess, with that story, and there could be some factual basis behind it, but I haven't found that yet. You know, but it could be there could be some out there.
okay. Well then the book that you found that was written in the 70s, was that the one
Yeah,
that I had up here on
yeah,
screen?
that was it. Yeah, it's called "Rich Little Poor Boy," and it was written by the local postmaster of the area.
The postmaster's writing this story.
Yeah, he wrote the story. Yeah, hmm and he pretty much nips it in the bud right there. He says like, okay, there's a lot of folklore and stuff about how Harryman Road got its name, and he'd been the postmaster there since Round Rock became Round Rock. And he says, I'm gonna tell you how exactly it got its name, and he begins to tell a story in the book of a bunch of high school kids out there hanging out, and then one of the kids, who was actually the high school football quarterback, star quarterback, he was stranded out there on Harryman Road around midnight, and he claims that he was chased out of the area by a wild hairy man. This was in 1966. So he claims to have been chased out of the area by a wild hairy man. He goes to school the next day, kind of tells everybody about it, and it catches like wildfire. The kids are just, they're talking about it, and it kind of exploded after that. And then there was a guy who was opening a business. I believe he was opening a business down near Harryman Road, and he wanted to get his stationery done. So he goes to the local postmaster and he asks for a stationery, and their names are in the book and everything. So
Uh-huh.
we have this; it's factual. And he says, "Hey, I want to get a stationery, whatever." And he goes, "What's the name of the road here by my place?" And he's like, "I don't think it has a name, but all the kids call it Harryman Road." And so he laughed his way out of the post office. He kind of laughed and whatever. And so he went down to City Hall,
Right.
talked to him for a minute, and then he came back and he says, "Yep, they said call it Harryman Road." So he got stationary from Harryman Road. But at the very bottom of this, as he's writing, he talks about how there was a lot of anger from some of the local citizens, from the people who'd been there for a long time, and he literally wrote in the book that they told him, or they told they wanted to change the name to like Fern Bluff or something, and they said that they were treading on holy ground. Is literally the terms he used in the book. He says, don't call it Harryman Road. You're treading on holy ground when you're
Now, who
when you're
said this?
this is in the book. This is I think his name was C.D. Folks. He was one of the old timers in the area, like one of the ranch owners in the area.
Okay,
And
so
the name's
he
written there. A few people banded together trying to get the name changed. And in the book, it says they were warned they were stepping on hollow ground. Like that's in the book.
to they were stepping on hollow ground, as in that's why they were opposing the name, or they wanted to.
They didn't like it being called Harryman Road, and so they told him, "Hey, you're stepping on hollow ground, calling it like Harryman Road." Apparently, they wanted to change to Fern Bluff. Yeah. So there was a lot of back and forth, but it eventually stuck, Harryman Road. And the people that were fighting for it, like they were well named people. Like we have schools and stuff named after these people, the ones that were fighting against it. Like there's a middle school I think named C.D. Folks, and that was
Right,
one of the people that was opposing. Hey, we don't want it to be called uh,
Harryman Road.
Harryman Road. Yeah, and he had a big old piece of property that backed up to the Brushy Creek. So who knows?
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's okay. Well, for me anyway. Not
There's a lot of little weird stuff with the Harryman Road and Brushy
right,
Creek like that. A lot of
right,
little weird little, you know, yeah, I don't
right.
know.
Exactly. Very,
You'll see as we
very
go on. It's just some
interesting.
weird little, yeah,
Okay, so that's really seems to be the true uh, origin then for
yeah.
what we're here talking about, what we're connected here with.
So basically, there's been a long history of what we call Harryman sightings in the area that date back possibly to the 1800s, but for sure date back to at least 1966. We know that for
Right,
a fact.
right. And as you were kind of researching this area and doing your uh, videos with researchers that were there, I saw that you had a couple, and
Yeah.
in doing your own uh, documentaries, you've found some of these other accounts, and what as far as the aggressiveness or behaviors, what kind of people been experiencing? What kind of encounters have these been?
So pretty much like every person that I've talked to that has had, some type of experience that I guess you would attribute to Sasquatch, they've all been chased out of the area, ran out. And I mean, they're in the documentaries. Like one of the ones that really just kind of startled me was my friend Jordan actually flew over here from Switzerland. I think I told you about it, Cans. He flew from Switzerland to give an interview about how his encounter happened, and his encounter was almost spot on with mine. He was right off of Harryman Road camping, and he said something came out of the brush, like a freight train, and scared him off of the area. And they were actually hanging out by one of the overpasses by the Brushy Creek by the guardrail. Something just smashed that guardrail, and he says, they took off after that, and they were walking on foot. His house wasn't that far, but they still had to get to his house. And he said, as they're walking, they kept hearing like this clicking, like duck noise. Is what he kept saying, and it was so similar to other accounts, like like my account that I've had with aggressiveness, and then like I think we're going to talk about Nana Anna's. It's the same thing. She was charged at, and it just seems like that's kind of what people are experiencing. Another woman told me that there was a Boy Scout troop out there. I believe it was in like the early '90s, that they were hanging out there trying to do like some type of retreat or something like that, and they ended up being chased out of the area. And these were like teenage boys that normally would kind of have the gusto or tease each other about stuff like that, but they all just left. So they all seem, for whatever reason, like they're aggressive. I don't know if there's motive for that, or if they're trying to protect this area for some reason or another, but they
Well,
all are aggressive from what I've seen.
that kind of brings up a question that Spencer had from the chat, because he was asking something that you had, I think, talked about. I know on one of your live streams before. As you can see, that he's just
Yeah,
curious,
cool.
any idea if there is a native burial mound near there, or any idea why it might be hollowed
Sure,
ground, and kind of that's what
sure.
we had mentioned that was noted in that book from the
Yeah,
people exposing that.
well, I'm going to tell you right off the bat, in the Beast of Brushy Creek documentary, I'm talking with construction workers that are working off the Harryman Road. And point blank, one of the construction workers goes, "This whole place is Indian burial ground." He says that. And in 2014, the house that I actually what I was living at, 50 yards away, they found a Native American burial mound, an ancient Native American burial mound. It's in the Beast of Brushy Creek documentary. We know they found 3 people there. Uh, Unfortunately, Texas has a weird law that says once the state or whoever comes out to investigate, uh, the construction company is actually able to hire their own anthropologist. So that's what happened here. They hired their own anthropologist. They came out here, and to this day, we're not really sure where those remains are. We know they're not there, obviously, but we don't know who took them. We don't know where they went. We don't know how old they were. We know they were ancient. We don't know how old they were, and that's a
Right,
little disappointing because uh, we know that there's human remains along the Brushy Creek that go back almost 16,000 years.
right,
And I'm talking about the Neanderthal woman that was found, I believe, in like 1976, right along the Brushy Creek. So who knows?
right.
These bones might have been older or newer. Who knows? But it's unfortunate that we didn't get that information. But that could have been what they were meaning when they were saying hollow ground, or it could have been another reason. But there
Yeah,
are
and that
Native American burial grounds all over this place.
right, and that kind of goes to the point that where they found those remains. What did they end up doing with that property around there?
They built a road right on top of it, and next to it, they built a subdivision. And right near there is Freeman Park. They did build some of the park there, some of the trail. But really, what they did with that, I know that exact spot. They built a road right over it, and I mean, there's no plaque or anything like that.
Okay, well, what about where they found the Neanderthal woman?
Where they found the Neanderthal woman, it's kind of the same thing. Unfortunately, they continued the construction. There is a small little plaque on the side of the road that says, "Hey, here's where we found the Neanderthal woman." Like
Right,
it's terrible, and that whole thing should have been investigated a lot deeper, because the way they found her, it's like they wanted her to find her. They buried her a very specific way. There was like she was like, there were different levels around her, like different steps and stuff. It was really weird.
right,
There's pictures
right.
of it as
Yeah,
well.
see, that's kind of the the interesting part about that whole area. I mean, this when we talk about the development and the encroachment that's come in along Brushy Creek. I mean, Round Rock, Texas. What's that? South Central Texas. I mean, that's
Yeah,
not.
South
I mean, that
Central,
you
yeah.
don't get a ton of rain there,
No,
right? I mean, that's
yeah.
one of the most lush area in that whole area.
Oh
I mean,
yeah,
up
and I
and
mean,
down that valley.
and we have a lot of underground springs and aquifers that just pop up and go back to underground. So it's we have the Balcones escarpment that's literally you can see it from space. It's like a mini Grand Canyon, and
Right,
that
and that's
just
like, and that's protected. That's like federally protected land, isn't it?
some of it is, yes, some of it is
I mean, it's
the
like a national
aquifer.
wildlife refuge. I thought.
Well, that's the Balcones. You're talking about the Balcones. I'm saying like
Right,
that's part of the escarpment, but the escarpment really goes from like San Antonio almost all the way up to Dallas. You know, like it's a really big old chunk, and that's where you find a lot of these limestone caves. The Balcones is off there. The San Antonio, the government Canyonlands is also a part of that Balcones escarpment.
right,
So there's a lot of parks and a lot of green
right.
belts
So
and
yeah, and
runoff.
that's kind of where I was going with that. Is it seems to be that if there is a uh, areas where that type of archaeological archaeologic find would be, that may hinder some type of development. But it also shows that how rich that area is in the history of peoples that have moved up and down in those areas and lived there for generations, thousands
Oh
of years,
yeah, yeah.
obviously back in 1600s.
Well, the other thing, real quick, I probably should drop in there. Really, I don't know if it has anything to do with talking about. We're talking about the burial grounds and stuff like that. Uh, right around the same time, they found the Neanderthal woman. They found an ancient Roman coin at the bottom of one of these Indian burial mounds, and so that's always been a really weird, unexplainable thing that just happened also along the Brushy Creek. So that's just kind
Right.
of put that on top with the other weird stuff that's happened.
And now the areas are being developed right up to Brushy Creek, where that
Yeah,
green
yeah.
belt's about the only thing that's left there. So if
Mhm.
you're um, an animal that's having their habitat taken away, over time and it being developed, I think that you may be a little bit aggressive when you come into contact with
It sounds like it.
people that are in your, other things that are in your space now might be bothering you. So,
It would
so
make sense. Yeah.
um, and moving on um, to some of these people you talked to that had kind of enlightened you to a little bit more of the history and encounters that have been going on. It really seemed to take off though around 2017 in Round Rock proper and along Brushy
Oh
Creek.
yeah.
Even though we've had this history of back to Harryman Road, kind of some other sightings and encounters over those years also, but it really picked up in 2017 and kind of just explain what was going on then.
Yeah, 2017, for whatever reason, it could have been the construction going on, like you mentioned, but there was a lot, like an insane amount of sightings going on at the time. I mean, so much so that people were, had pictures of footprints. They were going on online databases and writing their encounters. They were going on these local groups, like the Facebook groups, people love groups, and they were talking about, "Hey, I saw something weird here," and it was just a really a hotbed of activity. Like I said, there was a couple of footprints that were found, and one of them I do believe to be authentic. The other two I'm not really sure, but there was a footprint that was found off of, I think that was close to Freeman Park, the Freeman Trail. There was some really amazing detailed encounters that I said were written out, and they're going to be in the book here. For a long time, I wasn't sure if those encounters were authentic. It took me about 2 years to track down the author of one of those encounters, and I was able to track him down and realize he was a real person and his encounter was real. And the stuff he talked about was he. I think he probably has the highest education of any person I've ever interviewed about the
Oh yeah.
Brushy. Oh yeah, he's a doctor in his field, and he was just very. He told me straight out. He goes, "I don't believe in Bigfoot, but what I saw was real." uh, and it was the timing of it was incredibly interesting. And but 2017, so many sightings were taking place. And if you want, I can talk about the video that is the alleged video that uh,
Yeah,
you might have
because as I was looking into that, I found a couple of the stories and the what was it, KTVA or I don't know
okay,
what it was, but they were doing kind of the local news
sure.
story on that, and some of the results that came back or something they had noted in their story was that uh, local residents had had their own reportings, and there had been a report of a video on somebody having a video phone of a creature or of a bee. I don't know what the exact words
Mm.
were. But yeah, go on.
Well, so yeah, what had happened was that I was researching for my first documentary, and I wrote into this group, "Hey, has anybody heard of this stuff? I know there was some things going on in 2017 or whatever. Does anybody have information on that?" Multiple people reached out to me saying, "Hey, you need to contact this guy," and uh, I'm saying it was more than two. I gave you the text for two of them, I believe, but there was at least four, and I'm trying to go back and get those messages, but whatever Facebook, like it disappears after a certain amount of time. But the messages are all, talk to this guy, and I reached out to that guy, and he said that
Right,
yes.
and we're
Go ahead.
running some pictures here in the background
Okay, yeah,
of
that's
what was
Freeman
going on at
Park
that
right
time
there.
in the park
Yeah,
trail.
yeah. So they put these signs up 2017. Yeah, and that's Freeman
But go
Park
ahead,
area right
go back
there.
to the guy you were
Yes.
talking about. Sorry, I didn't.
Well, yeah. So no, that's fine. So yeah, these are some of the text right here. So I reached out to the guy, and he says I did film something. I'm not allowed to talk about it. I signed a non-disclosure agreement. I have the text between me and him, and they're going to be in the book. I'm gonna put his name out there because he confessed to me. So everything I'm talking about is true. I'm gonna put all this stuff out there. But multiple people reached out to me talking to him, and he pretty much admitted to it. He says, "Yes, it happened or whatever." Uh, they raided his house. I didn't believe that at first, but I found out where he lived, and I knew someone that lived in that area. And I asked him, "Hey, this crazy guy talking about how you got raided?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, he got raided, man. I remember." He goes, "That day, nobody was able to go in or out of the neighborhood for like a few hours." He goes, "That definitely happened." And so some of these texts are the people telling me, "Hey, contact this guy." So like this text you're seeing on the screen right here, nobody believed him until he got raided. And I don't know if you can go back to the other one before that, but the other one before that talks about, yeah, it was on a People of Round Rock page. The pics were deleted. The guy got in some serious trouble. He got paid to shut up and stuff like that.
Right, and that's corroborated by that news story that I found where they referred to that in that news story about
Yeah,
somebody having a video. So
people saw this
it was
video.
known, and it might not, and
Yeah.
it could have been this person, but it could have been another one too.
Yeah, like I
But
said, multiple people reached out to me saying, "Hey, you need to talk to this guy. He took the video." Multiple people saw the video, and this person here who sent me the message was one of the people who saw the video. And he goes on to tell me, I think it's in another one of these things here, but he goes on to tell me what was in the video. He says this is what was in the video, and he goes into great detail about it. And like I said, other people told me, "Hey, reach out to that guy." If it was just one person saying, "Oh, talk to that guy," that'd be different, but the fact that it's like four different people giving me this guy's name. So this is one of the messages he sent me right here. He says, "Solid craters and sounds in the caverns. Bones are found." This was months before the collapse, and I think we'll talk about the collapse here in a second. And yeah, this is yeah. It was off of Harryman Road. So if you want to read that real quick, but yeah, it's off of
right,
Harryman
yeah,
Road,
people
and
see that there, and that's okay. So this was 2017.
this is
Um,
2017.
in addition to the footprints that were found, the signs that were going up, and when we looked a little bit deeper into that, we thought that might have to do something with the parks department, kind of doing some things to encourage people to get out and engage kids
Could
at that
be.
time. But this is an area that's Harryman Road. It's got the history of all this going down. Got a video, and you had even in your previous the Legend of Harryman Road. That was the first. documentary?
That was the second one. Yeah,
Second one.
yeah.
What was the first one?
Beast of Brushy Creek. Beast of
Beast of
Brushy
Brushy
Creek.
Creek.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. And which one of those did you run into the guy that had taken the picture of that figure that was hanging out next to the
Yeah.
tree?
That was in the Legend of Harry Man Road. That was the
Okay.
Legend of Harry Man Road documentary. And yeah, that picture was taken right off of one of the Brushy Creek trails. And that's just the whole. I mean, you got to watch the thing on that. But military guy who was out there, and a woman approached him saying she needs some help. She thought she was being followed, and he goes back to that area and sees this thing peeking behind a tree, and he gets a picture of it. And
Right.
it's in the Beast of Brushy Creek documentary. So I mean, there is, you know,
And what year was that?
yeah, that was 2021. That was 2021.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. Gotcha.
yeah, that was
Gotcha. Right.
2021.
Right.
Hmm.
Okay. So back to the guy that got raided,
Yeah,
and back to 2017, and they're talking about knowledge, or at least people on this
right.
neighborhood bulletin board are posting about their experiences or what they've been hearing.
Exactly. Yeah, and like I said, multiple people told me to reach out to that one person who had taken the video, and he confessed to me. He took the video. He couldn't talk about it. He signed a non-disclosure agreement. He told me when it was. He told me it was off Harry Man. He told me where it was, and like I said, if it was one person telling me reach out to this guy, that'd be one thing. But it was like multiple people saying, "Hey, you need to talk to this guy. He had film of this. He took video of this. It was out there. Multiple people saw it." And so when I reached out to him, he didn't really want to talk too much. That's really all I got from him. Is I did film it, and the texts are going to be, or the messages I'm going to have are going to be in the book between me and him, and I'm going to put his name out there. His name's going to be out there for the public to research themselves.
Right.
Maybe they'll get a
And this is
confession
kind
out
of
of
some of
him.
the
Yeah,
footage of what's going on underneath.
right. Well, he talked about how, that's the other crazy thing, is that he talked about how he had approached the city and told them about this cave opening where he had taken film. He says they didn't listen to me, they didn't believe me. Then what happened? A couple of months later, we had this cave in. The cave in happened, and he mentioned that in his
Interesting.
text. He mentioned that in his text between that we had. He says I filmed it. It was 7 months before the cave in, which would put it in June 2017. So all that's really, timeline stuff is really interesting.
Yeah, that's weird. The whole time in there, and this is
Yeah,
kind of a look at what those
exactly.
caves underneath there can look like and what could hold, and that's
Oh yeah,
underneath and along a whole stretch
yeah.
that runs for what, 50 miles at least out to.
Yeah, it's a good close to maybe more than 50 miles from here to the Balcones and even eastward. Yeah, I mean, it's just Swiss cheese under there. It's and even in that video, one of the ladies talks about how beforehand she was able to walk right into one of these caverns, fully walk right into it. And
Right.
when I was doing the Beast of Brushy Creek documentary, the workers told me about a cave they saw that they saw deer going in and out of. West Brushy Creek does have a lot of deer, but that was one of the caves that I found in my short time out there, and that's the other cave that I found that I
Right.
wasn't trying to find, but it kind of found me.
Right. And this you found later in
Yeah,
what, 2020, 2021?
that was a 2019, right before the
This one right
shutdown and
here.
everything
Okay.
happened. Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
2019.
Well, then we'll kind of hold off on hitting
Okay.
that right now, and because 2017 is also
Yeah,
when the Parks Department, is kind of running this thing, with more signs being put up. The stories are coming out. We got this video.
legend
We got
video.
this
Yeah,
guy raided, and then at the same time, we got this curious little thing
yeah.
about
That's
the
that's next, I think. Yeah,
FBI
yeah, absolutely.
putting out a wanted poster. And let me
Yeah,
for full disclosure, when we first talked about this and when I first saw this, I was very skeptical, about this being anything serious at all. I thought it was a joke. And then
sure.
as I mean, and that was back from watching it on your first time you even brought it up, and that was like on one of your
Yeah.
live streams. What, about 8, 10 months ago or
Yeah, it
so?
must have been a while, but close to a year ago. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then I start. I'm going to have you come on the show, so I'm doing a little bit of prep work, and I'm looking into it, and I'm just like, man, I want to play the devil's advocate here with Eric, and I'm
Yeah.
going to say, oh, well, can't this just be? There's got to be some other explanation. There had to be. Did you contact them? And when I looked into it, what really surprised me about this is that there wasn't any statement from the FBI on this at all. There was silence on that, and all of the disclosure, like you will get into, came from either the news, a news story, or somebody within law enforcement there in one of the cities. So kind of,
Yeah.
so let's go into this because, um, I,
Sure.
to my
So
chagrin, uh,
no.
I have just as many questions kind of about this little thing, no matter what it signifies, if it does end
Right.
up being a
Right.
joke or whatever, it was just kind of weird of all this that's going on in 2017 and then
They
this.
put this
So,
out there. Yeah, so I'm just gonna tell you right off the bat, that's 100% a real a real poster that was created by the FBI. We know who created it. We can trace that back to a person because the email was actually leaked to the public. I don't want to say leaked, but it was made public. The email between the FBI agent, we know his name, to the chief of police here. And in the email, it's going to be in the book. He talks about saying, hey, we heard there's Bigfoot in your area. We want to offer you all resources you need to try to capture it. I've attached a poster, and in the poster, there's a $500,000 reward. Okay. Now, you could say it was a joke or whatever, but I have never seen the FBI put out a fake wanted poster, put out a fake reward. And the other thing is, like I said, we could trace this back to not only a person that worked for the FBI, but he was actually the head of the FBI in Texas at the time. We know that. That's a fact. He even signs the email, special agent in charge, his name and his rank, and he also puts the places he's in charge of at the bottom of it. Now, digging a little deeper, you can actually read his resume online, and his
how's that
resume,
on here? You got any
it's
graphics of him on here with his?
well, I didn't want to put his name. I don't know if you
Okay,
wanted his name, but it's going to be in the book. And I've talked about it before on other streams.
okay,
But yeah, and we know his name. We know he was the head of that at the time. So all this traces back to it's why would the FBI put a fake poster out there with a fake reward? I don't think they've ever done that before. If it's like I said, they could have used a fake name. They could have used, an alias, but they decided to use this person's real name to put it out there. So it's 100% a fact. It was made by a real FBI agent. Whether or not it was a joke is another debate. Okay, but that is a real 100% made poster by the FBI. The email pretty much admits to it. And like I said, the only thing that's arguable is whether or not it should be taken seriously or not. But again, when does the FBI have a sense of humor? I've never seen them joke publicly. So
right,
that's really what kind of when I started digging deep, and I'll go a little bit deeper. His CV and his resume talks about how he's in charge of uh, 10 secret, overt, and covert military bases in Texas, and he's also in charge of classified information. You can read that for yourself. It's in the
right,
documentary, The Legend of Harry Man Road, but you can go read it yourself. It's going to be in the book. All this is public information. So why would that person with so much power do something like that? Because it was real. They were really looking for whatever this thing was out there. And you remember I told you about the guy who got raided, okay?
right.
He went to the city officials and told them about the cave-in and stuff like that. That was right around the same time this came out. So,
And there were also two reports that we found on the
oh
BFRO
yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah.
around this
Yeah.
same time, and one,
That's yep. I forgot to mention that. Yeah.
right, and one was the a guy in his backyard.
Yes, yeah.
And
So
and if I remember correctly, it backed up to Brushy Creek, didn't
back
it?
up to Brushy Creek, yeah. So that's the other weird thing is like we know where this came from. It came from the head of the FBI. We have an email confirming that he sent it, saying, hey, I sent that to you. If you need any resources, I'll give it to you. And not only that, but the same day this came out, there was a detailed report about an encounter that took place along the Brushy Creek, almost in the exact same spot where they put on this poster here. So why would you do all that? Like the same day that was reported, the poster came out.
Yeah.
So they were on point, man. And like I said, I went back trying to make sure it wasn't any type of, misinformation or whatever. And I was thinking that for a long time. Like maybe they just put that out there but I was able to track down the guy who actually wrote that. It took me 2 years. He confirmed it was a real report. He confirmed what he saw. And, like I said, that is way too much data pointing in one direction right there. It's really hard the only argument is, oh, it's a joke, but that's kind of just, that's an
Yeah.
easy out. That's an easy out to
Well,
me.
and if it is that the FBI had ample opportunity when all this was going on to make a public statement, and in it was the Parks Department making statements, and it was the sheriff's department of Round Rock, or
It was the police. I don't think it was the sheriff, but it was the city police. Yeah.
okay, and there was a now you did you file FOIA requests
Yeah.
on this?
I've done FOIA requests on a few things along the Brushy Creek, some of the bodies and stuff like
Right.
that. But I did do a FOIA request on this, and they sent me something back that was kind of interesting. And like I said, if it was a joke or whatever, why couldn't they just say, "Oh, we were joking about that" or whatever? But this one, they said they could not confirm or deny, whether or not they were actually looking for Bigfoot in the area. And I have the receipt or whatever from the Freedom of Information request that I did. And in there it says they put the date and everything. I didn't put half of that stuff, I didn't put in there. But they said something like, I should have put that in the pictures, but about Harryman Road investigation and stuff like that. They wrote that. I didn't write that. Like I didn't they put a date in there. I didn't put the date in there, which
Now
to
let
me
me
was
hold
really
on.
weird.
Let's back up because you had mentioned something about this earlier to where you were getting some type of indication. This is one of your earlier live streams where you're getting some type of indication that you thought somebody was trying to send you a signal because you'd been making request after request after
Yeah,
request, and they had been denied,
yeah,
and kind of a blanket denial. But this
right.
time they said a specific term that you hadn't even asked
Yeah.
about.
Exactly. Yeah. I didn't, yeah, I've never got this before, but in the subject line, like when you type a Freedom of Information Act or a request, I'm sorry, you cannot, there's no subject line. It's just you write the email or whatever. But in the subject line, when they returned it to me, it said Bigfoot Harryman Road 2017 search. It said that. And I didn't put any of that in there. That I didn't, I didn't put any of that stuff in there. So when I got that back, I was like, what the hell? Like I'd never seen this before. They could have
Right.
just denied it, they've done so many times. They could have just said, "Oh, we're denying it or whatever." That didn't happen this time. This time they sent back saying, "Oh, and we don't know anything about the Bigfoot Hairy Man investigation of 2017." And I'm like, I didn't even ask that. I was asking kind of like tiptoeing around it, but they were the ones who just put it out there. We don't know anything about that. We can't confirm or deny it. So I thought
Well,
that was really weird.
so then have you filed anything since then in regards to
Yeah, since then I've been doing it's
the
weird
it's
with
2017 investigation, quote unquote, which
yeah, so it's really weird with Freedom of Information Acts because you just have to change a few pieces of wording, and that could get you somewhere. That could get you denied. So the last one I did, I got denied, but that might have been because I might have put something in there that I've put before that I forgot, or there's always just little ticks and tricks you can do to kind of get it passed or not. But I have
right,
done it, and this last one that I got was just a straight up denial, which I'm kind of normal. It's normal. That's been happening, but for whatever reason, the Hairy Man one was, they gave me a subject saying, "Hey, we don't know anything about this stuff going on here in
right,
2017." So
right.
that was
And
weird.
the emails that the police department got from that person at the FBI,
Yep.
those were released also.
We have that email. It's public. That was made public, and I have a
Okay,
copy of that. It's going to be in the book, and it's 100% says, just like I told you, "Hey, we heard there's Bigfoot in the area. We're giving you all necessary resources for you to catch it. Here's a wanted poster, and here's a $500,000 reward." Like that was in the email, and he signed it with his name, head of invest. special agent in charge and all this
Right.
other, you know.
But the FBI didn't release that email,
No,
right?
that email went to the chief of police here in Round Rock. And whether or not he released it on purpose or what, we don't know, but it was released. And the news took it and they made it public. The news made it public.
Right.
And it's
And
actually really hard to find now. That email is really hard to find. It's out there.
that's what's
But
so
it's hard
weird
to
about
find.
the timing of the little Parks deal also is that
It's like they
is
were
that
covering their tracks. Yeah. That's what it
I mean
sounds like.
that's smarter than I would think.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean the fact that they're like putting the you know, and then that poster, you know, if it's all fun and games, they would have put like, oh, Bigfoot's been seen running around or you know whatever. But in there it says
Right,
he
right,
terrified
right.
a camper. He's like aggressive. He'll tear you to you know. It says in there are dangerous. You know, like stay away. It's not a joke. The poster doesn't seem like a joke. You know, and
No,
and they could
no.
have used a drawing. They could have done like a scary drawing or a funny drawing, but they used the patty subject, which to me was also interesting.
Yeah. 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 So I'm and a lot of times when you're making references to everything that's going on around there, a lot of this gets kind of muddied up. So I really would like this opportunity to have a time to kind of flesh this out and dive a little deeper into this. So I hope
Please, yeah.
the chat realizes that's kind of what we're kind of, taking the time to kind of, incrementally go through this, because it's just a lot of strange things that you think about. And when you're going through them so fast and you're trying to make sense of them yourself and you're kind of deep into this, it's like I made the joke the other, or you kind of, make some self-depreciation jokes or appreciating jokes in the sense of, I don't want to. You don't want to seem like you're the crazy guy, ranting on about Brushy Creek, but it's compelling. There's some compelling facts that are out there.
I kind of say that all the time, and you messed with me a couple times, but they were good ones. But yeah, it's always like I feel like a crazy person at some point when I'm talking about, and we haven't even talked about the bodies. We haven't even got to that part yet, and
Right.
we're already kind of like deep in
Exactly.
already. So yeah,
Exactly.
I do feel like I'm kind of losing my marbles a little bit, and I try to take a break whenever I can. But man, it's just like creeps up on you. Like, yeah, I'm not even trying to do some of this stuff, and I'll get an email or it creeps up on you.
Okay, so okay, then let's go move on to kind of the construction worker. So this is a couple years after the anything else you want to add about the FBI? Plug the book a little bit, because
Yeah,
I
yeah,
don't want to
yeah, sure. No, the book
move
is going to
past this.
have.
We'll talk about the
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
real
no, the book is going to have pretty much all the stuff we've talked about. It's going to name the names of the people. It's going to have the email from the FBI to the chief of police. It's going to have the messages that I exchanged from the person who allegedly has that video, and it's going to show, like, it's going to talk about the FBI agent's previous history, what he's done, where he's gone since then, because there's been some developments about that as well. And it's going to talk about some of the players that I really haven't named, but I'm going to name names. I'll just say that. I don't want to go too deep into it, but I'm going to name the names. I'm going to put the dates out there. There's going to be a timeline that kind of breaks everything down. And again, if it was just an anonymous Bigfoot poster sent from who knows who, whatever, but there's just so much backing it to where I can track the name. The reports came out the same day. People messaging me saying, hey, this weird stuff was happening around that same time frame. Like,
right.
Was the guy paid off or not? Was that part of the reward money there? Like, there's a lot of questions that I'm going to be talking about in the documentary. Yeah, because
Interesting.
exactly, yeah. And
Yeah.
there,
Yeah, and that'll that's and that's kind of something I wanted to ask you about a little bit too. How has that been? Writing a book versus putting together a doc for people.
I thought it was going to be a little bit harder than it actually was, because when I was getting the documentaries prepared, I would do a lot of writing for the narration and stuff like that. And I took a lot of notes as well, so I was able to kind of mold that into maybe a quarter of the book and some of the notes as well. So it went pretty smoothly as far as some elements I already had, and I just needed to change and stuff like that. But like I said, I was just trying to make sure I didn't miss anything was the main goal. And I feel like every time I talk about the Brushy Creek or I'm on a stream, I always miss one thing that I forget to add. In the
Right.
book, I'm not missing anything. I'm putting
Right.
everything in there. It's names, dates, every timeline. So I'm
Cool.
not going to be missing anything there. It's all going to be
Yeah,
in there.
and that'll give people more of a context that have seen it on the streams and have know kind of what's going on there. Give you a whole
Right.
context to kind of see what all was going on, who the players were, and
Exactly.
have that
Yeah.
in a way you can go back and use it as a reference or context as you
Exactly.
go on and try to connect what's going on there.
Right. And I'm
Good
not
for people also, hopefully, that can turn you on to some more information.
that's the one of the main things I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to, flesh out some more my main goal, and I've said it on the stream before, is like my dream is that someone has that video from 2017. Someone maybe downloaded it. Someone maybe has it somewhere. Like they were smart enough to take a video of it as snapshot of it or whatever, and maybe they just been holding on to it, and then they haven't heard about me yet, or they hear about what's going on, and then they decide to finally, that's like my dream right there. But in all fairness, I would really like to have more people come out and that's happened. Like Nana Anna came out and told her story, and it's going to be in the new documentary. And
Perfect segue.
sure,
Perfect
yeah,
segue.
yeah,
So we'll move next into that. As far as we're about an hour into the show, and I want to make sure we cover some things.
sure,
Uh, so next, you've got two previous films that you made about Brushy Creek, and just kind of give me a synopsis of those two real quick, so we
yeah.
can move to this and give a an idea of where you're moving to now.
Yeah, so the Beast of Brushy Creek was kind of a culmination of the research that I had done prior, starting in 2018. And that was just really kind of not focused on one thing or another, like the hairy man or any of the other stuff, but it was just kind of focusing on everything that was going on at the time. There was,
Right.
unfortunately, human remains that were found, ancient and new human remains that were found. There were the hairy man sightings that were taking place, and the history of the hairy man that was here. And there was just a lot of really strange activity that people hadn't really heard of, and it got to the point where like the cup of weird stuff was like overflowing at that point. So I was like, man, I got to talk about this stuff. I got to put it out there because I didn't know it at the time, but there were other people with other experiences, and they're saying like, hey, I'm so glad for you putting this stuff out. And even in the comments of the documentaries, like The Beast of Brushy Creek, they're saying, I had an experience as well, and I've gotten some curious contact with them. And then the other documentary I did was The Legend of Hairy Man Road, which really focuses on the hairy man topic in the area, the history of the hairy man. And in 2001, after The Beast of Brushy Creek came out, I was getting a lot of information about sightings and reports that were taking place. And that's really what the Legend of Hairy Man Road was. It was it was kind of the aftermath when people had reached out to me. And again, that the picture we talked about earlier of the guy who had the tree peaker or whatever, that's in Legend of Hairy Man Road. There was
Right.
also the bent T-post that's right off of Hairy Man Road. A researcher found a T-post that was bent like a banana that's just like really hard to do. And he also found a coyote that was turned inside out and tied into a knot. And that's on the Legend of Hairy Man Road too. It was right near the Balcones, headed towards the Balcones Canyonlands. So there was
Yeah, and that researcher had actually come from East Texas
from
because
East Texas.
he had heard uh, about a footprint, or he found a footprint there also.
He had heard about an encounter that took place. Uh, Someone had reported an encounter there off of Hairy Man Road, and he went there to initially disprove the whatever was going on. But he found a trackway that led up to this T post that was bent like a banana, and on the other side is a private property he didn't have access to. But he said he found that the trackway, the bent T post, and then what he thought was like a knuckle print in the ground also. And shortly after, he started doing some research in the area, heard more accounts that people were telling him, and also that's when he found the coyote that was tied into turned inside out and tied into a knot. So after that, he became a believer, and he's just a really interesting researcher. He's got so much information that he hasn't really made public. It's It's amazing how much that guy
that bent
has.
T post was right off Brushy Creek,
It
right?
was right off of Harryman Road, right next to the
Harriman.
Brushy Creek. Yeah,
Okay.
and I mean the force it would take to do that steel post, it takes a lot.
And folks, go back and check out Eric's previous appearance on Larry's channel on Beast of the Woods, and there's some pictures of that. And I think
Yeah.
even there might have been even a small little clip when you talked to that
Okay.
investigator. So that's more interest there, more activity around there still,
Yeah.
even after 2017, right?
Yeah, it really hasn't stopped, to be honest with you. There's activity in one form or another that seems to be happening here. And that's, the most recent thing that happened to me was we had someone reached out to me about some rock throwing that was taking place along the one of the trails. And that was right before the Harryman Road ended up being closed for about a year. The Harryman Road had been closed for about a year, and again with the Brushy Creek Harryman Road, it's always a weird timeline thing. So I get a message saying, "Hey, I was riding near the Harryman Road on one of the trails. I had pebbles thrown at me. Literally, like 2 or 3 days later, the Harryman Road's closed, and it's closed for pretty much a year at that point. And
Right.
they did
Right.
do some construction, and the construction is yeah, it's interesting, I'll say that. Um, $9
Well,
million dollar
you tried to
construction.
do it was supposed to be open, wasn't it, on
It
Halloween
was
night?
supposed to be open, yeah, it was supposed to be open, and I tried doing a midnight drive down there or a night drive down there, and sure enough, it was closed, and it didn't open till November 3rd, I believe.
I
Didn't open
thought you
till
were going to
November
go
3rd.
around the signs. I thought you were just going to go around.
I thought I was too, but hey, people in the chat vetoed that. They're like, "Nope, we're not gonna bail you out," so I was like, "Alright."
Gotcha. Okay, so then moving on into this new endeavor, this new film, the Expedition Brushy Creek.
Yeah, so like I said, we had one of the biggest droughts we've had this year, as opposed to the first experience I had, which was in 2011. So the area was looking kind of similar to when that happened. So I really get to go down into the Brushy Creek, which is kind of like a little canyon area almost. We're down in the Brushy Creek, and I'm at the beach where the encounter took place. I'm showing you where this thing must have come from, and I'm trying to kind of make sense of it all, going in detail of my encounter in the area where it actually happened. So that was cool. We do the night walk down Harryman Road as well. And I'm in a lot more of the Brushy Creek than I've shown in previous documentaries, and also. Well, I'll talk about the Nana Anna interview. We had an interview with Nana Anna, and she was one of the people that reached out to me after seeing the first documentary, and that's kind of what I'm going for. And her encounter was just insane. I mean, probably one of the most detailed encounters I've ever heard taking place along the Brushy Creek. It was kind of the similar thing of being chased. I'm not going to go too much into detail about
Sure.
it, but I mean, I was getting goosebumps when she was talking about it. It was vivid. It was like it happened yesterday when she was talking about it. And there's a lot of interesting information that I think people they might be able to use in future investigations. To be honest with you, um,
Now, and so she lives kind of in around Round Rock, or she lived further out west?
at the time she was living in Cedar Park, which is right along the Brushy Creek. Harryman Road goes right by that area. She
Right.
lives in Austin now, so yeah. But she lived there
Gotcha.
for many years, and her encounter was very, very interesting. And she showed me a picture of the area and stuff like that. And I was thinking about going back to that place, but I don't want to be like in front of someone's house pointing and they end up calling the cops. And
Oh,
then I'll try
I'm
to
sure they wouldn't
explain it.
mind.
Yeah, right. Then I'll try to explain. I'll be like, no, there's a hairy man and stuff. And then they'll just throw me in the asylum right after that. But
Well,
yeah.
now what's this picture here about?
Yeah, so
Um,
that's the Hairy Man Road when we did the night expedition, and the full video of that's going to be in the expedition Brushy Creek. But as we were walking down there, it had been closed for about 10 months at that point. That's Aaron, is
okay,
a
so
friend of
this is
mine.
this is along the nighttime walk too, and
Yeah,
this is going to be in the documentary.
that's going to be in the documentary. The full version is going to be the documentary. That's us walking pitch black. I mean, I have the new iPhone, and that thing has a pretty good. I don't think it's night vision, but it's like it shoots pretty good in low light situations.
Right.
But everything else was just pitch black out there. And we did experience some activity. Really, right after we turned our back in one spot, huge tree break that was just like I cursed up a storm after that happened.
Right.
It
You
was
mentioned
just,
that.
yeah, it was like it was crazy. Like literally, as we turned our back, something snapped. A big old thick tree snapped it. You could
Now,
hear it. Like,
you guys were on the road, so this was off the road.
yeah, just off the road, right off the road. But we were walking on the road for probably about a mile and a half, maybe. Terrifying the entire walk through there. But yeah, we were looking at one thing. We turned our back, a couple steps, and then big old tree snap. I got it on
So
camera. It's really clear.
it was closed. So you guys were the only people down there.
We were the only ones down there. It was closed. We parked my car down a ways, walked Harry Man Road, and we actually had, yeah, some tree throwing incidents as well. And this is going to be in the Expedition Brushy Creek here. I just wanted to show you guys how dense it was. Like, this is during a drought, okay? Like, that's what we're dealing with. That's like, if you're not in a trail, you're having to cut your way through there. Like, you're not seeing the ground. The ground is vines,
Right.
curtains.
And that's in a drought when none of it's grown up.
Exactly. That's in a drought. And if it's raining, you're talking about up to your chest if you're not cut down. Yeah, it's one of the little trails right there. But yeah, like I said, in this documentary, we're
And
going,
this
showing you guys the area. This is the pebble throwing right here. We got it on camera. Might be a little hard to see, but it's going to be in the documentary as well. And yeah, so we had right in front of us, out of the darkness, things were. You can see there's a little pebble in the bottom left there, kind of comes through. It's right here.
right. I
Yeah,
think it pops out right
like,
there, right here.
yeah, right there. Yeah, they you can hear it bouncing as well. I don't know if I left the audio in it, but you can hear it bouncing, and then I'd like replay it and stuff. Freaky,
I'd
really
get a bad
freaky.
reverb if I played the audio.
Well, yeah, don't do it then. But yeah, I mean, just pebble just right in front of me, like insane, insane. And then right after that, Aaron got hit in the foot by a pebble, and he's like,
Oh
he
yeah.
started cursing up a storm right in that same area where that fence was or whatever, the private
Uh huh.
property. Yeah, it's
So now this is um happening at the same time the tree break is, or the tree break was earlier
the tree break happened 3 to 4 minutes before that happened,
before the rock.
before the rock. Yeah,
And this is along that area you said that has that private property.
yeah, that's right at the bottom of a ranch, a privately owned ranch that's been
Okay.
there for many
And
many
so
years.
when we're looking on here, is this the side of the private property, and
Yes,
this is Brushy Creek over
you got
here?
it. You got it. Yep, you
Okay.
got it. Yep.
Okay. So essentially they cut Harryman Road right through this, and it used to be all trees and
Yeah,
creek and green, just like you were walking through before,
exactly.
until they started developing all these
Yeah.
houses right up to Brushy Creek, or really giving it about maybe a quarter mile, maybe a half mile on each show. I mean, each
Yeah,
side.
yeah, that's pretty accurate. Yeah. Well, maybe on the ranch a little bit more because that ranch hasn't been
Right.
developed. Uh,
Right.
yeah,
Exactly.
but yeah.
So that ranch right there on this left side goes up that hill and down
Oh
this
yeah.
road about a quarter mile or so.
Yes, yeah, and then really far down the other way. And that is like on that side here, on the side you have your cursor there. It's a bluff.
Right.
That bluff's going at that spot. It's not that high. That spot's probably around 10 feet, but at its highest, I mean, it could go 40, 30, around there, 30 feet up.
Right.
Full of
And that,
caves, caverns.
right. And you'd alluded to this being an area you wanted to get onto, but you can't because it's
Oh yeah,
private property,
yeah.
and
I've been wanting to get on there
it's
for a while.
undeveloped.
Yeah. Hmm.
And so
Yeah.
this is an area that just kind of sits kind of like a little bit of an island
Oh
along
yeah.
where there's housing developments on each side
Yeah.
of this and behind this. But
Yeah. Yeah. It's got to be at least, I don't know, maybe what do you think? 75, 65 acres, maybe more,
yeah,
maybe
yeah,
more.
yeah. That's about right. Probably 50, probably.
Yeah, and I mean, just it's been owned by that same family since the 50s, I believe.
Right. And
Uh,
so it's got caves underneath it on this property, and
Caves, yeah.
it's been left alone except for that family that lives on there.
And there's a gigantic house. I showed you that house on
Right.
there. It's a big old ranch looking house that yeah. That's it right there.
So
Yeah.
so this over here is their fence.
Yeah, that's their gate right there. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, that's their gate. Yeah.
Ah, wow.
So, yeah, I don't know if how they were able to access it if Harryman Road was closed too. I don't know. But yeah, that's
Yeah,
that
or I
road
think
right
they
there.
might have had another way, maybe coming in from the behind them, maybe
Yeah, they could have done that too. Yeah,
coming in from that housing development that's
yeah,
there. Um, well, Chad, if you got some questions for Eric, I definitely put them in all caps. Um, been about an hour and 15 minutes into this. We'll probably go for about another half hour or so. But
yes, yeah.
anything else you wanted to talk about as far as the film or what's going to be in it, or any of the encounters that you wanted to highlight that maybe we didn't touch on? I know I've had my
Yeah.
outline crash about three
No, you're
times.
good.
I'm glad I.
Well, the last thing I probably want to talk about for the Expedition Brushy Creek is that in there, I'm going to have there was video in another documentary that I took that people started messaging me saying, "Hey, we see something in the background of one of your videos," and I had to go back and look at it, and there was something kind of weird in one of the backgrounds, and so a German researcher actually supposedly 25 years in doing visual analysis, reached out to me, looked at it, and he gave me a very interesting breakdown and analysis of what he thought was in the video, and that's going to be in the documentary as well. And it's really weird. I slow it down and play it, keep playing it back, and the fact that I didn't notice it when I was putting the video together freaks me out. The fact that I didn't see it when I was up there really freaks me out. But the analysis from the German guy is going to be in there, and it's pretty interesting. So I think people will. I don't know how they're going to take that, but it's yeah, it's just another strange thing happening along the Brushy Creek Harryman Road here.
And that was in which
That was
clip?
in the Beast of Brushy Creek documentary, and I think it's in the someone must have timestamped it in the comments. There's a few people that actually timestamp it in the comments. But yeah, so that's going to be the analysis for that video, the breakdown that the guy had for it's going to be in there, and it's pretty interesting. I'm not sure if I agree with everything he's saying, but his breakdown is really interesting. And I had someone else that's looking into it, and hopefully we'll have that back in time to where I can include that in the documentary. But if not, I'll just roll with the other guys. So
And when do you think you'll have that out? And where can people find it?
So the documentary I was aiming for, it could be the end of the year. If not the end of the year, it'll be the beginning of next year. I mean, I'm in post production right now. Everything's filmed, so I'm really editing, doing the post production and stuff like that. So it should be out end of the year, the latest, or beginning of next year, the latest. And it's gonna be on Tubi, Amazon, and some other free platforms. And it'll probably be on YouTube as well, but I really implore everyone at least to check it out on Tubi because Tubi is really appreciative of their creators, and they've reached out to me personally, and they know how to take care of the people that work with them. So I'll say if you want to watch it, try to watch it on Tubi. That's probably the best place to watch it. And the Beast of Brushy Creek documentary is on there as well.
Okay. Well, and when you say work with creators, what do you mean by that? Is that
They're
like for monetization, or is that for like
they're a little bit freer with what you can say. I'll say that.
oh, excellent.
Yeah. Oh yeah, they're great. They'll let you. Yeah, I'll just say that they're a little bit better with
We're
that.
all good about spreading the word for platforms that encourage.
Yeah, no, Tubi's great. If you don't have it, it's free. You don't have to pay a nickel for it. They have a lot of amazing content on there, and you're like I said, they treat their content creators accordingly. They don't try to silence anybody or censor things out. And before, when I was submitting to other places, they'd say, "Hey, we like it, but you got to take this out," or you can't have that. And that happens.
Oh yeah.
I've even had that issues with YouTube. Unfortunately, I had to change the Legend of Harry Man Road once after it had already come out because they didn't like one part of it.
Oh yeah.
They didn't like one news article that I had in there for whatever reason. So I had to
Oh,
put that down and I put another one up, and it seemed like it's all right now.
okay.
Yep.
And the book. When's the book coming out?
The book's going to come out beginning of next year. Yeah.
Next year?
The book is pretty much just finished. I'm just figuring out if I, more than likely I'm going to self-publish it. Well, right now what I'm doing is I'm doing like a pre-order. If anyone wants to pre-order, they're going to get the only hard covers. So the hard covers are going to be for people that pre-ordered it, and most likely I will self-publish those, and then for the rest of them, I might do Amazon just because it's a little bit more accessible to people. So we'll do the pre-orders. If anyone wants to pre-order, they're actually on my website right now. If anyone's interested in pre-ordering, and you'll get the hardcover for it. So that'll be at the beginning of next year.
And how?
Yeah, the website is actually mediapalace.net.
Okay.
Yeah.
And your channel is at Media Palace on YouTube, right?
You got it. Yeah, Media Palace on YouTube. Yeah, and I'm trying to be a little bit more frequent with the streams on Fridays. I'm actually doing these colorized movies on Fridays that I'm kind of remastering and stuff like that. So if anyone's interested in that, check me out on Fridays. It's a good little bit of fun we have there.
Yeah. Yep. For full disclosure, I moderate on Eric's channel when we're watching the colorized versions of some older films.
Yeah, world premieres, man.
That's true. That's
Yeah,
true. And
world premieres.
you've had a little bit of trouble with people trying to steal that from you.
Yeah. I had a couple people try to steal that from me. Yeah, I mean, it literally, like, each one of these movies takes me about 20 hours to do, to
Yeah.
colorize it. It takes a really long time, and I want to keep putting them out there, and I'm gonna keep putting them out there, but it's just a little hiccup because people are seeing it. They're like, "Oh, cool," and they'll put it on their channel, and I'll have to mark them for that. But
Right.
yeah, if anyone enjoys classic cinema, monster movies, and stuff like that, I do world premieres on Fridays of these movies that no one has ever seen in color. So it's the first time people are seeing it like that, colorized.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now let's touch on we've got some time here.
Sure.
Let's touch on the other kind of elephant in the room that we've avoided.
Yeah, I think we've avoided
That
it.
you've gotten into, and the reason Eric had delved into this is because he's been in an area that he grew up in that's been named one of the safest cities and areas in America, and then all of a sudden, we don't know what this is all about, but there's bodies that start turning up in and around Brushy Creek. So kind of, we've covered the other topic. Let's kind of see what piqued your interest in this, or what was the first thing that kind of got you in this, because you have a background in public television,
Right.
investigative journalism,
Mm-hmm.
and so what kind of tell me how you got interested in this.
Yeah, I mean, probably the first thing was that the Native American bones they found like 50 yards away from our backyard was really the thing that opened my eyes. That was in 2014, and after that point, I was like, well, maybe I need to kind of keep my eye on this, because we knew there was strange things going on there, but this kind of made it public, like, hey, there's weird stuff going on here. So I kept my eyes open. In 2016, like you said, we were named one of the top 10 safest cities in America. And actually, that same year, we had 3 bodies pop up in the Brushy Creek. And for whatever reason, all the bodies that were found, they labeled as no trauma, no foul play suspected, but they were also listed as ongoing investigations. They never released the cause of death for any of those bodies that were found in 2016. And one of those bodies they found, they never released if it was a man, woman, age. They never released a name. We had no idea on that person. The only article, I was only able to find one article about that death that happened. And 6 days after that death, they found another person right by the Round Rock, which comes out of the Brushy Creek. So that's really what got me to take what was going on here seriously. And in 2017, that didn't stop with the Bigfoot stuff that was going on. In 2017, just a few months after the FBI put out that wanted poster, there was actually a guy who live streamed the discovery of human remains right in that same area, Freeman Park. He was live streaming and found human remains, and it was a big deal for a little while. And again, we have no idea who that person was. male, female, how they died. We have no information on that, even though in a public news meeting they had, they talked about saying that they were going to release the information, but they didn't have a cause of death at the moment. They would make more information public. They never did that. In 2018, they found a body in a pond, which was just a little ways from the Brushy Creek. Again, I think they said that was a man, but we have no idea if that was. We don't have the age. We don't have a way they died. It's just the same information. No trauma, no foul play suspected. 2019, an elderly man was actually missing in the area, and they found him right where they found the majority of these other bodies and human remains, which was there by Freeman Park. They found him in the creek. That was in 2019, August of 2019. So right then and there's been a body popping up almost every year since 2016, 3 in 2016, and it didn't stop. In 2020,
in 2000, let me break in. 2017 was when they put up those signs around Freeman Park, right?
Exactly, yeah.
The Parks Department did with the Bigfoot crossing signs.
Right. And shortly after that, the guy, live streamed human remains he found at that same area right there.
And that's where the footprints were supposedly found also.
It's where the footprints were found. That's where the FBI report says that area right there. They say that area, 79, or I'm sorry, they say like 122 in Brushy Creek or something like that. That's the same area.
So that's the Freeman Park area.
That's the Freeman Park area, East Brushy Creek, yeah. It's all happening in that same area.
And some of the people that you'd talked to in your past films, were any of those encounters they noted around that Freeman Park area?
Yeah, well, yeah. Brady talks about an encounter he had that was there off of Freeman Park. It was in the Beast of Brushy Creek documentary, and
what year was that?
I want to say that was. He says it in the documentary. I don't remember. I think it must have been 2000. It was earlier than 2014, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it hasn't stopped. And like I said, in 2020, luckily there was no bodies or human remains that were found, but there was a girl that went missing along Brushy Creek. They made a pretty big deal about it. Right. Yeah, and it was really weird. This one was really weird because she was last seen carrying a blue suitcase and an antique Victorian doll. Like, why would you?
That was the description that went out, and who gave out the description? It was like it was an APB or a story on the news.
It was on the news, yeah. But they made that public that she was carrying an antique Victorian doll in a blue suitcase for whatever reason.
Right.
Be on the lookout,
But did they find her? Did she come back?
So they found her. I don't really want to talk too much about it because I've heard multiple different things about it, but they did find her, from what I understand.
Okay, yeah. Gotcha. Fair enough.
And then it's terrible that it's like, but in 2021 in November, they found a body in the eastmost. That they found one, and that was Williamson County, really east, in a rural field that backed up to a creek. I don't think it was the Brushy Creek, but I think it intersects the Brushy Creek at one point. In East Williamson County, that was in 2021, and then there was another body that popped up. And it's like, I don't know if it should be affiliated or not, but we just have like bodies freaking popping up. So it was Friday the 13th, Friday the 13th. They found a body that was about half a mile away from Brushy Creek, but that area was kind of like in a residential area, so it was a little different. But again, with all of these, never any cause of death, never any trauma, foul play suspected.
Right, but that's what they've said. They've come out public and said there's no foul play or nothing, and the public isn't at any risk or anything like that. But when we did look back at a little bit of the history, there were some news stories around I think it was like 2016 or something like that, where there were a couple attacks on joggers or something on.
Yeah, I think there was a couple of different times that happened. I think in 2000, I want to say maybe it was 2018, that did happen. Someone was attacked on the trail. And then again, I think in 2021, maybe 2020, where someone was attacked on the trail again. Yeah, so there it's people have been attacked out there by people. I believe they were people that attacked them, but it's weird. You wouldn't think that in the safest cities, in one of the safest cities in America, or
Right.
whatever. But
Now, has there been any other like type of crime increase or anything like that that's been going on? Is there an element that's moving into the city that seems to foster that
I
type of
mean, you
criminal
wouldn't
element
really.
or anything?
Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't really think so, not from what we're hearing in the news and stuff like that. Like a lot of the stuff you hear about, like Austin, because it's Austin's really growing a lot, but we're just north, so a lot of the
Right.
we're kind of like the suburbs up here
Right.
almost. So a lot of the people live up here. They'll work in Austin and kind of go back and
Right.
forth. But we really haven't had any crime spikes or anything like that. I think again, like last year, this year, we were also named one of the safest cities again. And I made a comment about that thing, like, "Oh, everybody, watch out! We're named, safest city again. We gotta be on guard now." Like
Right.
that
Right.
was recently. It might have been last year, but
Okay.
yeah,
And now, as you've gone through um, this process, I mean, you've also run into some weird things with people reaching out to you, kind of out of the blue, kind of not threatening, but kind of in. I mean, maybe you want to describe it as that, but in kind of mixed messages or kind of cryptic communications
oh
about
yeah,
this topic. Is it just specifically this topic, or is it was more about even going back to when you had one of your well, I think it was when you showed that door or something.
yeah, yeah. When I showed that door, I got a couple messages about that one. I'm still getting messages about that one. Mainly, people want to know where it's at. And one guy messaged me saying, like, if I don't give him that coordinates or whatever, that I could spend 5 years in a federal prison and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I've had other things kind of like that. And I've actually had a call. Someone called me telling me, like, to stop it, to give it up. No one's listening. You're terrible at this. Like, I think I still have that on an old phone, on an Android phone that I have. But that was weird.
But
Yeah,
wasn't that supposedly though somebody impersonating somebody you were working with?
yeah, yeah. They were impersonating a buddy of mine that, like, I literally just left his house too. And you could tell they're not even trying hard to sound like him. They're like, yeah, they're like, hey, this is so and so, you're terrible, and like, stop it, like, I was like, what? Like, it was all really weird. And I still have that message. But yeah, they were impersonating a friend of mine, terribly impersonating them. Like, I don't know if it was like they were doing it to mess with me or whatever, but I've gotten stuff like that before. And then I've also, like, someone text me my old address, kind of trying to scare me. Like, they text me, like,
Right.
almost like, we know where you live, but it was my old address, but still.
Right. And if
Yeah,
it's public, people can find that on the internet pretty easily.
probably. Yeah, probably. Yeah. So,
But as far
anyway,
as any resistance from uh the when you deal with any of the city officials or try to talk to anybody that way, is there any
yeah,
you
so I
kind
mean, the very first time I ever tried to get police reports from the city, I walked in and I told them, "Hey, I'm interested in getting." And the first thing the lady behind the counter says, she goes, "All right, stop." She goes, "I got to tell you, like," she said, I think she said, 8 years ago we had a crash and we lost all our files from 8 years ago, whatever." And then when I went to ask, it was like 2018. So she says that they lost everything before 2018. And I'm like, what? So yeah, we don't have anything from 2018. So, whatever. And I thought that was really weird. Like, what? Like, I got the words Brushy Creek out. And then she goes, "All right, stop. I got to tell you, we don't have any, like, she's like, we got to, that's about as far as I
that's
got."
that's a
Uh,
little strange.
Yeah, but like when I'm unofficially, like, out at places or whatever, like, I'll see police and I'll talk to them, or I'll look
Right.
or whatever. And
Right.
so the last time I did that, I was at an event, and I talked to one guy, and he was talking about the body they found in the pasture. Okay, and he told me, like, kind of unbeknownst to him, that I'm kind of investigating this stuff. But he told me that they were investigating it, that another state was involved with that. And I thought that was really strange. Like, another state, like, why would another state be involved with it? So That's the information I got from him. Uh, and that was never made public. I don't know if that was
Right.
reason or whatever, but
And there's not and there's not many details that come out about what, like you said, the cause of death. Because did you also file a FOIA for
oh
the
yeah, yeah.
autopsy reports?
Yeah, I've done a FOIA for 3 of the bodies that were found, and each time I've done that, I've got an exemption, which is pretty much like they're saying, "Hey, we are not giving you this information because it's either an ongoing investigation or there's they give you like a list of different things it could be, but that was one of the ones at the top. Like, could be an ongoing investigation. It could be, you know, a matter of national security. It could be like a few other things like that." But I
Right.
thought that
But
was strange just for a death, like a small little like drowning or whatever they're claiming some of these to be. Who knows?
yeah, I don't know. I don't really know the legal ins and outs of the autopsy privacy, because a lot of times the right to privacy expires with the death of the person, unless the family requests that it
Request
not
something
be
like that. Sure, I
released.
could see that. Yeah.
I'm not necessarily sure about that. David Blaylock had a question in here. I think kind of related back to maybe Indian tribes in the area or ancient peoples
Okay.
in the area, if I can find that, because it was to the effect of, what's your thought on people like native tribes becoming giant and hairy, as in the sense of, maybe was there any history in that area within
Hmm.
uh, that you could find that talked about
Yeah.
maybe trading, or an offshoot of a tribe that had separated and developed into
So, yeah, I mean, from what I understand, the Tonkawa tribe is the tribe that lived along the Brushy Creek here. And the only information that I found that's kind of similar, you talked about Harry developing or Harry or something like that, is that they worshipped a giant wolf. And every year they would celebrate like a dance of the wolf, and they would drape themselves like a wolf, and they would do these ceremonies, and that's really all the information that I have about the Tonkawa tribe. Was a weird tribe. There's not really much information about them in general, but that's what we know is they worship a giant wolf, and they celebrated every year like a dance of the wolf where they dressed like wolves. But I,
and was there anything about their size of their statue, or anything about history of
mhm,
large
I mean,
skeletons being found in that area?
I don't know about large skeletons, to be honest with you. But one of the things weird with the Tonka was they covered themselves in full body tattoos, and I don't know if that's a normal thing for any other tribes, but they had like almost like some of the Polynesian tribes. They covered themselves sleeves, neck to full tattoos. So
Interesting.
yeah, I thought that was interesting. Maybe to symbolize hair or fur. Who knows? I don't know. Thought it was
That
interesting.
is, yeah, because you don't. I mean, I'm not very good at that type of history, but I can't remember many
Right.
uh, with tattoos.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like a native thing, Well, at least not a Native American thing, I guess. Yeah.
And also, you had mentioned that you were trying to get out to Brushy Creek to camp sometime. Was that right? I
Yeah.
mean, was that part of what you'd wanted to film in Expedition Brushy Creek also?
Yeah. So the plan for Expedition Brushy Creek was to actually camp out in East Brushy Creek, an area that I know fairly well, similar to when we'd go out and fishing and stuff like that. And I literally did a stream talking about, hey, my next project, Expedition Brushy Creek, I'm going to be camping in this area. I'm going to be, fishing. It's going to be cool and stuff like that. Literally, like 4 days later, there was some type of chemical spill in the Brushy Creek that affected that exact spot that I was going to be at,
Oh yeah,
and they had signs around that area. It's in my community tab on my YouTube saying "Stay out of Brushy Creek." Like you're not. It's not. No one's allowed in the Brushy Creek right
right.
now. For a chemical spill. And I just it's always like a weird timeline thing on the Brushy Creek. Like
You're
it's
bad luck.
bad luck, and
You
every
shouldn't announce
time,
it. You should
yeah.
just do it.
Well, every time I would be like, "Oh, cool, cool. I think it's good now. I'm gonna try it now." We had like 4 chemical spills. All right, there was like 4. Just now they're saying the water is like back to normal. You can go back on my community tab, and I'm talking about like another spill. Like what the heck? And so it was just like an ongoing. Never happened before. But when I'm talking about going out there for an extended amount of time, it's literally closed down like that.
And
Just
the
weird.
and the but you can camp there. Is that right?
You can camp in certain areas of the Brushy
Right,
Creek.
of
Yeah,
Brushy Creek, but
yeah.
in the Balcones you can't.
Balcones, Canyonlands, you cannot camp there. I believe they're closed weekends. They
They close at
open
4 o'clock in the afternoon
they
or
close
something.
at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. It's just a really weird spot. Open at 8. They're not even open for 8 hours. Like you're not allowed to walk off the trails. They have like designated trails. There's no water there for anybody. Like there's like no bathrooms or anything. They're trying to make it like as uncomfortable for people there as possible. Is what it sounds like. But that's a weird spot too, man. I've had so much people contact me about the balconies. I'm going to be working on a project about that, pretty soon here.
What have they had to contact about weird in the Balcones?
I mean, there's accounts in the balconies dating back to the early 1900s. There's the famous Bearman account that took place literally. They're talking about a cave that is in the Balcones Canyonlands.
Bear Man, wait a minute, Eric.
Bearman, yeah.
You're springing something new on me here.
I've mentioned
We
it
didn't talk
before.
pre-show about the Bear Man,
No,
did
the Bearman. No, no, no. Bearman, man. It was world famous. I think it was like 1903. There was a woman named like Remy Gillard, I believe. She was in the hill country right there at the Balcones, Marble Falls area,
we? Yeah.
and she was tending her flock of sheep, and she, from all indications, she was kidnapped by a bear man. They came out of the chaparral, grabbed her, took her back to her cave, which the cave is now in what we understand as the Balcones Canyonlands. And there was a search. There's names talking about this search. They found this bear man creature and killed it apparently, and set the girl free. But this story was picked up by all the
What?
major newspapers at the time.
The Bear Man killed what? What?
No. The Cowboys, they made a search
Okay,
party. They had a
gotcha.
search party, and they tracked it down to the cave. They freed the girl, and they killed this bear man. And it was picked up all throughout the news. Like the San Francisco Chronicle picked it up. The Tuskegee, some other thing picked. There's like depictions about it and stuff like that. It's actually in the Library of Congress. It's like it has like a framed area in the Library of Congress.
Wait a minute. What was the name of it again?
The Bear Man of Marble Falls. Check that out. Yeah.
Bear Man of Marble Falls.
Yeah.
Bear Man of Marble Falls. Is there actually a falls?
Oh yeah, in the Balcones, yeah, there is, yeah. They're not that huge, but there's a couple of falls there. Yeah. Yeah, it's like 1903, maybe earlier.
Yeah, there it is, man.
Yeah.
But of course, the first return telling about the legend of the Bear Man is from a brewing company.
That's
Bear
King.
King Brew.
Yeah, Bear King Brewing. Yeah.
Well, how's the beer there? Do they have a Bear Man brew?
I think they just have like a bear on the can or something. I haven't tried it, but I want to try it. When I buy the Balcones, I'll go out there because I think that's where they actually brew it. It's up there in Marble Falls. Yeah. But that was a big story.
Mysterious. Yeah, I did. I'm sorry, Mark. Larry, you can cut that out later. Edit that out. That'll be awesome. I don't want that on my tape.
But
some say it was half
deal.
Man, half bear. Others claim it was just a bear or simply a man.
Yeah. That was in the early 1900s.
Right. Well, it's on Wiki fandom for.
Oh yeah, but it's interesting because, like I said, a lot of news articles picked it up. There's 2 artist depictions of it from separate, like the San Francisco Chronicle and another news agency. But I thought that was cool that they actually drew it out and everything. But there's a long history of the Balcony stuff, and even more recently, like people have sent me things and stuff like that. But I've heard a lot of activity taking place there.
What? Let's see here. So it was the Kickatoo Indians of the region had a local legend.
Yeah, the Kickapoo. Yeah, they actually moved to South Texas. They live in South Texas now, but
right that was
their legend.
Kickapoo Reservation here north of Topeka,
Okay.
northwest of me. And this says, as Rami was out tending to the sheep flock on her family's farm one afternoon, members of the household reported to hear Rami's screams, followed by what they described as the roar of a panther. Gathering weapons and running from the home, they found Rami gone, and after searching the woods without clues, soon assembled a search party of locals. Group searched the woods all night, but was unable to find the missing girl. The next day, a local hunter found Rami wandering the woods aimlessly several miles away. Okay. I don't know. Maybe she just used this as an excuse for something else.
Could be. Yeah, you might be right. But
said the bear man brought her to a cave in the mountains and struck her any time she tried to escape. She eventually waited for the creature to fall asleep before escaping. The bear man.
And there's a couple other stories about a Native American man who they think was the bear man. He was like some type of witch doctor or witch.
Oh yeah?
Yeah. There's stories about that too. And actually I'm still doing some investigating on this, but like the face that I found in the cave or whatever, remember, if you remember that.
Yes.
Yeah. There's rumors to be another face out there in the area of the Balcones that is a depiction of the bear man. And it's been seen, it's been found, it's been photographed. I believe I have the picture of the photograph. The photograph was like in the 70s, but it's a carving of a thing that has like fangs coming out, like it has like little fang. It's not as detailed as the one that I found, but they refer to it as the Cleo face. I don't know why they call it the Cleo face, but it's referred to as the Cleo face. And I've seen one picture of it. I think I still have it somewhere, but I've seen one picture of it, and it's an interesting depiction there. And near one of the creeks that come from the Balcones there.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of interesting stuff coming out of that area too. And the fact that it's only open less than 8 hours a day, closed weekends, like it makes you wonder, like it's a federal park. It's not a state park. It's a federal
right.
Park.
Exactly.
And even in some of the, I think some of the stuff that I showed you, they talk about how the caves there go for miles underneath the hills, the hill country. They say that like caves there can go for miles. Like
right. Yeah, because when we looked at the aerial shot of that, it looked like kind like you said, kind of a mini Grand Canyon, because there were lots of areas that looked like it had been, eroded through water, oceans.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and there's really a lot of springs that come out from underground there, and underground creeks and rivers for sure. That's a fact. But I'm really trying to get out there here pretty soon once the weather starts cooling off.
That's Balcones Canyon land, right?
Yeah, Balcones Canyonlands, yeah. And I would really love to get a permit to stay overnight, but I'm not holding my breath for that. It'd be awesome, but who knows?
Oh yeah, I just put in the chat to check that out on Google Earth.
Yeah.
Well, Eric, we've been on here about an hour and 45 minutes, and I know Larry's probably getting a little sleepy. And I think we've covered pretty much what we wanted to cover for right now. And I want to, extend an invitation for you to come back when you get the book ready to kick off and publish, and the expedition of Brushy Creek's ready to come out.
Great.
And then, heck, you'll by that time have probably premiered those and had some of the people on your channels and interviewed them to help explain a little bit more about what was going on with their encounters and stuff like that. But anything else you want to add? I want to give you an opportunity here to plug your channel, know where people can find you. I'd put that link in the chat. Yeah. Maybe I'll do it again here.
Yeah,
go ahead and
if you want to see any of the documentaries, The Beast of Brushy Creek is on. It's on YouTube, Tubi, Amazon. The Legend of Hairy Man Road's on YouTube. I'm getting that one ready for streaming services as well. And if you want to see some of the other videos, the live streams I've done, talking about the area, you can go to my YouTube channel. And if you're interested in the book, if you want to pre-order to get the hardcover, you can do that on my website, mediapalace.net. But I'm trying to put this stuff out so people can look at it. People can do their own research into the area. Maybe people that are familiar with things that are going on can reach out to me. I would love that. If
And
anybody has,
how can they find you? I mean, how can they reach
yeah,
out to you?
you can reach out to me on my website, mediapalace.net. It has my email on there. Or if you want to reach out to me on my channel and send me, a comment or message on my channel, feel free to do that. Always looking for people in the area. And recently I talked to you about it, Kansas, that someone reached out to me with a mother and daughter that said that they were within 12 feet of one of these hairy
Oh,
men
right.
right off the Brushy Creek Trail. So
That's
that's
right.
the most recent story that I have that I'm trying to track down right now.
Right.
And
Yeah.
hopefully I'll have that soon.
Yeah. And these aren't people that have, anything to gain from
Sure,
talking about these
absolutely.
encounters. These are just kind of suburban people that are close to
Right.
these trails that are just kind of like seeing something weird and strange.
And the majority of people that I've talked to that don't want to be on camera is far greater than the people that are willing to be on camera. I mean,
Right.
I've talked to so many people. Nope, I'm not interested. Nope, nope, no, no, thanks. But they've had encounters themselves that, they don't want people to know, or they don't want to be talked about, and for whatever reason. But
Right. And people should know that if they contact Eric or contact myself or want me to get in touch with Eric, is that we've got a non-judgmental you
absolutely,
know space. We're not here to ridicule anyone or to make fun of anyone or down, degrade anyone. So if you know somebody out there that has any information or has had any encounters around the Round Rock area or around Balcones,
yeah,
uh, or knows just something about Harry more stuff about Harryman Road, um, Brushy Creek, or even these, God forbid, something to do with these bodies, reach out to Eric.
please.
Um, and I want to thank you for coming on and bearing with me, hounding you the last few days,
Mhm.
sending the outlines and doing a little pre-show.
No, I'm glad I had fun, man. This was a lot of fun. I appreciate all the questions. I think you were probably the most detailed interviewer that's questioned me, and I invite that, man, because I forget a lot of stuff, and those questions kind of knock some neurons loose there.
Well, it is tough too because you got a show where you're coming on and you're trying to you really interact a lot with chat,
Yeah.
and as you're trying to kind of get out this information, you kind of a fit and a start, and like you talked about with your book, that gave you an opportunity to kind of
Oh
like
yeah.
put this out in a context and
Right.
roadmap it, and hopefully by asking you these questions, you can just kind of get to people to flesh out a little bit and give you a chance to take a step back and not be running a channel and trying to talk to people about the significance of what you're seeing, as well as interact with them and show them some video
Right. Right.
when you're trying to put on a
Good
show
point.
at the
Yeah.
same time as trying to give them a good product of what you're trying to communicate to them, when in fact your kind of final product is a documentary, is that long form narration
Sure. Yeah.
where you've got the editing, you've got the narration down, and you put that together. You're not specialized in running podcasts or anything
Right.
like that.
Exactly. Yeah.
So,
It's
that's
been a
why.
learning curve.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Both of us for sure.
Right.
So that's why I really wanted to get you on here, and because I went back and watched our previous show when you were on with Mark and Larry. I was like, damn, there was a lot of Bigfoot stuff in there.
Yeah.
And since then, I'd watched your channel so much that I'd kind of confused some things. And I just, part of this was for me too, but in a way so that we could both mutual benefit from this. So
Right.
it was a great show, and Eric, I
Think so.
appreciate you hanging out with us tonight, and chat everybody. Hey, all the mods, love you guys and appreciate you all you do for this and for everybody tuning in. And until next time, Woodsters, and for the crew here at After Hours, which is just pretty much me, I think. Thank you all. And Eric, hang out backstage here for a second,
Cool.
and we'll just chat up. But anyway, folks, we'll see you. I think actually next week when we're going to have Carter Bouchard for a return interview. Also, we'll talk a little bit more about the esoteric aspects of Bigfoot and some encounters that he's had, and his new book also. Okay, we'll see you guys later.
This has been a Sawdust production.